First, welcome up Janet for another piece.
What? They're laughing at me.
That was the music. Thank you for recording.
When I was really stunned when I was watching somebody watching, I think, tennis in the Olympics, and he had green hair and he had these glasses. And I'm like, hey, those are my glasses. I wanted to share with you one poem from another southern state, and I'm doing this for you now because my feature that's coming up later has nothing like this in it. So I'm getting these out of the way, and this is for, it says Alabama on this street, and it is from the book The Universe is in Your Hands. It's got all sorts of crazy stuff in it. But before I read it, I'm going to explain to you, if people don't happen to know, this t-shirt I had made, and it has the city of Chicago on it, and in gray it has neighborhood names on it. But the only streets that are listed in all caps in red are the streets I lived on. And there are also in lowercase a lot of open mics that I have frequented over the years, and many of them are closed, including Cafe Aloha and the cafe and this place, and Mestizo like Vito, and Tangible Books is even in there, Beach Poets, and there's a bunch of them that are scattered. But I figured and I put some sporting things on there too. Anyway.
Wait, do you sell these?
No, I just made this custom shirt for this week for me reading. And you want to have a map of the streets I lived on. I lived on Magnolia. But that was in Andersonville, and then I lived on Belgium, and then I lived on Kimball, and then John and I lived on Troy. I lived on Belgium in Logan Square.
When?
94, 95.
We were neighbors.
Also Redwood.
Oh yes, you're right. I didn't mention that when I was living with Beth. I was on Redwood, and I mentioned that on there too. But why am I telling? Anyway, I'm just telling you I had this shirt custom made for all of these readings I'm going to do in Chicago this week, and this is how I fill space. But anyway, this is for Alabama. It's a long one, and it's called Surprised at What You Might Find. After driving across the country, we usually just drive through Alabama to get to somewhere else. Leave Logan Square in Chicago to get to New Orleans for Mardi Gras weekend, that sort of thing. I haven't given Alabama much thought. Now, I may be totally ignorant about Alabama's civil rights legacy. I visited Florida Space Cape Canaveral last, but I've never known of Alabama's U.S. Space and Rocket Center, so maybe I'm the one that's missing out. Then June 24th, 2022 came, and then I learned that the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, and abortion in Alabama instantly became illegal, except when the life of a mother is in danger, with no exceptions for rape or incest. I don't know if I should be more angry at the government taking away rights, or that such personal rights are taken away from women. Then I heard that LeVar Burton, Geordie LaForge, that guy with the visor from Star Trek The Next Generation, that guy, the host of the Reading Rainbow PBS TV series for kids, he did a mock show about an Alabama banned book for sexual content that was banned only because the author's last name was gay. So I don't want to make inferences about a state because it happens to be in the South. I mean, I like New Orleans. I spent a good part of my childhood in Southwest Florida, and California is far too Southwest, but they're so liberal as they come. So I can't really judge. So I don't know what to think when I hear that Alabama has a new method of killing their prisoners. Okay, I come from a state where capital punishment was repealed for over half of this millennia, so hearing reports of an all-new execution piqued my interest. I know that a lot of executions by lethal injection stopped because drug companies wouldn't supply the drugs that contribute to the killing. Sorry. It's technical explanation time. With lethal injections, they first use a drug to make them feel good. The second drug stops the nervous system from telling the muscles to move, to stop the writhing, violent shaking, or thrashing, because nobody wants to see somebody fighting to survive in their execution. Then the third drug kills them. And now some might assume that drug companies wanted more moolah for the drugs, but I know for a fact that one company stopped supplying these drugs because they didn't support lethal injection. But none of that matters when the penal system wants to kill their prisoners and they can't get the drugs to make it happen. So, Alabama came up with a plan. They thought, hey, we're going about this the wrong way. We can induce death by depleting oxygen. And hey, why not make them inhale nitrogen? Because if nitrous oxide can make somebody laugh, then this has to be a humane way to go. You know, humane for killing people. All that, and we wouldn't have to deal with those pesky drug companies again. Then wouldn't have to worry about having issues with killing people. Next question. Is this safer? Maybe. Is it less painful? For whom? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm playing interrogator and inquisitor at the same time. These lines are beginning to blur and I'm losing my focus on this story. I think the point was that we didn't want to hurt the prisoners while we were killing them. Let that sink into your head for a moment. But the thing is, with these drugs and lethal injection, they numbed you first, then they stopped you from fighting back. And now? The prisoner gets a bag over their head for the nitrogen, and nothing for the sudden asphyxiation they feel when they lose all oxygen from their body. Now, I've never asked you to imagine what it feels like to be drugged to sleep, but think about having a bag over your head while fully conscious, losing oxygen, then the ability to breathe while conscious. Imagine it. Just try. Because although the state said this would be painless with, quote, unconsciousness in seconds, after the Alabama Attorney General called their first nitrogen gas execution textbook, witnesses disagreed when the execution lasted over 30 minutes as they watched Kenneth Smith conscious for minutes before writhing on the gurney for 2 minutes as he was, quote, violently shaking, thrashing. Alabama reporter Lee Hedgepeth even said, I've never seen such a violent means of execution. Wait, maybe I'm dwelling on this too much. This isn't a journalist's job to focus so much on the recent news, one that you may never have heard of. But wait a minute, maybe that is journalism Janet's job, to give you the news. If I could go on about the storied history and illustrious past of Birmingham, I could go on about how, even though they have so little Gulf Coast, they rave about their Gulf shores, eat their peanuts while raving about their college football. But watch out for snails, because they have the most snails of any U.S. state. By far. But wait a minute, NASA's Space Camp is in Huntsville. The first rocket sent to the moon was built there. I mean, how cool is that? And if you look up Alabama news online, nitrogen execution is nowhere to be found. So maybe it's just that journalism bug that wants to research this, because if I don't, who will? Maybe it doesn't occur to the world to learn about this, only to this inquiring mind. So let me leave you with this. States like Nebraska, Mississippi, and Oklahoma are also interested in this asphyxiation method, since they also cannot find the drugs to kill their prisoners. So many to kill, so little time. And let me quote Nebraska State Senator Lauren Lippincott, quote, if given this option, we are certain that the Nebraska Department of Corrections will use this method to humanely give justice to victims. Editor's note, justice in this context means killing someone. In this case, killing someone isn't murder, it's justice. So, there I go again, interjecting commentary instead of relaying the news. If you wanted mindless, I could tell you that the windshield wipers were actually invented in Alabama. Alabama's state animal is the black bear. And, by the way, because of animal cruelty laws, it's illegal to wrestle bears in Alabama. Mobile, Alabama used to be the capital of Louisiana, and Mardi Gras first occurred in Mobile. Speaking of drinking, Alabama is the only U.S. state to have an alcoholic beverage as its official drink. It's funny. I thought I could start and end this with a cute little tie into Mardi Gras and leave it at that. But when you really want to know the full story with more research, you're surprised at what you might find. I thought I could wrap this up while talking more about Alabama's stance post Roe v. Wade, how they put a little bow on this and say it was all done, this poem. But then I just heard on the news that after a patient wandered into an IVF cryogenic, aka frozen, nursery and accidentally dropped an embryo vial, one couple sued, but a lower court ruled embryos cannot be defined as people or children and dismissed the wrongful death claim. So they took to Alabama State Supreme Court in Montgomery and they, quote, ruled that frozen embryos can be considered children under state law. That the court document even referred to the couple as next friends of the deceased embryo/minor. This Supreme Court ruling granted fertilized eggs, the same rights as children. Now, at least Alabama hospitals halting IVF treatments to impregnate women as more dominoes continue to fall when no other state has given personhood to fertilized eggs. I mean, even strict states won't prosecute problem pregnancies before the 24th week. This slanted ruling now limits the availability of modern health care to people who need it. I see people struggling in Alabama now, not because of the destruction of the right to an abortion, but because they want to have kids, but now their court system and doctors tell them they're now stuck and can't. Here's a new twist. After a third IVF clinic in Alabama halted services because of this ruling, Gabby, an Auburn, Alabama potential mother, wanted to ship her embryos to, wait for it,
Illinois.
Texas, so that she could be implanted and have a baby. Then again, she might not be able to do this, for now that embryos are children, the companies handling the embryo transfers are unsure if legal ramifications exist for shipping children across state lines. So they are halting their services too. If you've heard me before, you might assume that all I'm interested in is giving women the right to an abortion. But this overturning is so much more. Just ask young couples in Alabama with difficulty in having children now that the state is stopping them. This fiasco still unfolds, but I don't know how to fight this as the dominoes are continuing to fall. For the more I learn, the more I fear how comfortable people are with the authoritarian state their government is turning into. People have asked their government to make decisions for everyone, and they didn't realize how badly these decisions would affect them. Telling the government to do the thinking for all the people, they didn't realize how much they would lose too.